Hi, my name is Zeta, and I chose to do my presentation on this article called Sexism, Attitudes, and Behaviors Towards Violence Against Women and Medical Emergency Service Workers in Erzurum, Turkey. I'm not a big fan of that title. It's kind of a mouthful, and I feel like it's kind of weird, but that's just what these authors chose to name it. A little background into why I chose something like this is because I couldn't really find anything on what I originally wanted to do. What I originally wanted to do was how differently women tend to be treated in a hospital setting versus how a man might be treated in a hospital setting. And usually my go-to example for that is if a woman wanted to get her tubes tied for whatever reason, a doctor might not let her, because she either isn't married, she's probably too young, and she doesn't have enough kids, which is a weird thing to consider because you would think that you'd be able to do whatever you want with your body. But sadly, that's not the case if you're a woman. While if a man wanted to get a vasectomy, he might just be able to, just because he wants to, he can get it done. A doctor will do it for him probably right then and there, or set up an appointment for him at least, and that's not the case for women, because usually I think even if a woman wanted to do that, she has to have their spouse's consent to do it. They need to write off and be like, yep, you can do that, or she needs to maybe even go to hours of therapy to make sure that's what she really wants, which is really weird. Okay, these are the authors, and I can't say I can pronounce those because they are Turkish or Swedish, I believe. Okay. Alright, so right off the bat, this article gives us this pretty terrible previous research findings, which is I'll just read it. Previous research and findings shows that 35% of the women worldwide have experienced physical and or sexual assault at least once throughout their lives. And and I forgot to read this too. And that's whether they have a partner or not. That's horrible. And you might think that 35% isn't that much and it's not, 50%. But that's worldwide. I don't know if you know how many people are in the world, but there's a lot. Okay. In Turkey, domestic abuse isn't all that uncommon. National Research on Domestic Violence Against Women in Turkey have done a study with about 12,000 women from a pretty big age range of 15 to 59. And this study shows us obvious problem of domestic abuse, but it also shows that a mass majority of women suffer with mental disorders after being involved in violence. I mean, the abuse that was inflicted upon them. Okay, so the mental illnesses, or the mental disorders that they develop, can be anything from post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, depression, anxiety, sleep and eating disorders, alcohol and drug abuse, and suicidal behavior. That's pretty terrible. I just wanted to give a little bit of background on the setting, I guess, this area is from, which is, as I said before, Erzurum City, Turkey. This area is kind of, I guess, on the more rural side. They're pretty traditional, and they have a very conservative lifestyle. So conservative and so traditional that they still have early marriages, polygamy, and forced marriages are still a thing, and they also have arranged marriages. Yuck. And but on the bright side, there are women who are starting to become more educated, but it's a very small amount. But they have been educating others, and it's becoming more tolerated for women to pick their own partners. Yay. Alright, 39% of married women in Turkey have reported that they have suffered from physical abuse at any point in their lives. And 39% is a lot. I'm not sure how big Turkey is, but 39% of any population is kind of a big amount. And then they tell us that we can estimate that 4 out of 10 women have been abused by their spouse or partner, married or not. Terrible. So the hypothesis here, or their hypothesis, is that participants who showed sexist attitudes would be found to have the highest levels of acceptance of violence against women. Which I think is a pretty good hypothesis. I would also think that. The purpose of the study is to also examine attitudes and behaviors of medical emergency service workers towards violence against women. Again, another good hypothesis. And something else that they wanted to possibly find was a relationship between sexist attitudes / behaviors towards violence against women. Alright, so this study consisted of 370 healthcare workers from Erzurum city hospitals. So that includes a hospital part of the university there, and I believe an emergency hospital as well. And their ages were from about 30 plus minus 8 point years, I think that reads. Yeah. And their sexes averaged out to be 176 women and 194 males. Great. Among these numbers were the most common nurses were the most common profession from 162, and then next in line comes 124 emergency medical doctors and or paramedics, and 84 of these people were also doctors. This is a cross-sectional survey design, with the use of a 3-point Likert scale, and that's a little sight. For example, 1 being I agree, 2 being neither agree or disagree, and 3 being disagree. So an example of that would be violence against women is a public health problem, 1 being, yeah, I agree, and violence against women is disturbing to me. Also, I would agree. However, 3 of the violence against women questions and 2 of the sexist attitude questions were reverse coded. So meaning, like, to go back to this one, reverse coded would be violence against women is a public health problem, and instead of 1 being agree, 3 would be agree. I'm not sure why to do that, but yeah. The final cross-sectional survey contained 35 items, and I will read them to you right now. 4 questions were for collecting demographic information. 1 question would ask if the participants' most recent VA experience. 1 question would ask about their action in case of dealing with violence against women. 2 questions for asking about sexual preference. 15 questions about asking violence against women attitudes. And finally, the 12 questions asking about sexist attitudes. Afterwards, to calculate these things, they use descriptive statistics. They use the t-test, one-way ANOVA, Pearson correlation analysis, Pearson chi-square test, and linear regression analysis, and of course 0.05 was considered to be significant. The study found that 173 participants felt as if they could recognize and manage, while 156 participants, nearly half, might I add, have encountered at least a single case of violence against women within the last month. Keep in mind that there were 370 participants here, and this is how many felt they could recognize and manage. Yikes. However, there weren't really a significant difference between the participants who had encountered violence against women or not. So the results, the mean plus minus standard deviation scores of the violence against women and sexist attitudes were 18.9 plus or minus 4.6 and 21.5 plus or minus 5.6. And the highest sexist response with 136 participants agreeing to the quote, "It is the duty of the man to provide for his household." That was the highest response. Yikes. Or the highest agreeing response. The hypothesis was supported. Participants who displayed more sexist attitudes and behaviors were more accepting of violence against women. They were also able to examine the medical emergency service workers' attitudes and emergency service workers' attitudes and behaviors towards violence against women. The hypothesis of possibly finding a relationship between sexist attitude or displaying sexist behavior towards violence against women was also supported. They go as far to say that they have empirical support from the idea that sexism is definitely a significant correlate of acceptability of violence against women. That kind of reminds me of correlation does not prove causation, but I think in this case it might be a little different. Oopsies. Oh yeah, sadly more than half of the professionals said that, half of them that participated in the study didn't feel comfortable with dealing with violence against women cases, which is pretty terrible because this is a hospital setting. They were able to say that violence against women is a public health problem, but they believe that they can really do anything about that because, this place was kind of from a rural and traditional place, so you can't really force people to change, But they do acknowledge that since the general public wasn't involved, they can't really say if their findings applied to everyone, because this was just with educated people, which is surprising. That's the end of my presentation. I know it's a little long. I apologize. I didn't think I would do that. Okay. Thank you.